Welcome to Take Two Podcasts by Janus Concert Series. Janus is a storefront theater company in Chicago committed to telling old stories in new ways, including works in both the operatic and musical theater canon. Today we're talking to tenor Chaz'Men Williams-Ali about his work as a professional opera singer in Heidelberg, Germany, and how performances have continued amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hello, everyone. We're excited to bring you our first installment of the Take Two podcast series. My name is Katie. I'm the artistic director of Janus Concert Series.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Caldwell. I'm the marketing manager of Janus Concert Series. And we're really excited today to welcome Chaz to our podcast. And I'll let Chaz introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chaz'Men, Chaz Williams-Ali. And I am a close personal friend of Janus Concert Series, and I kind of been tagging along with Janus kind of from close to the beginning with, master classes and video series and things like that. So, so I'm excited to be a part of this project and just kind of talk about art in the new world.
We're excited to have Chaz along. I mean, Chaz and I have been doing this thing for about a dozen years now. So...
Katie has been waiting for us to cross the 10-year mark for so long.
I have.
And now that we're past it, she's like, now it's a dozen. And soon she'll be like, it's almost 15. And it's like...
Actually, we just hit the 13 mark. Or we will in another couple weeks, because we met in 2007, in August of 2007.
That's a legacy, you guys.
That is a legacy.
Yeah.
And we came up together singing, and when I started moving into producing, I obviously wanted to include Chaz and include what we do, because we've always had really similar thoughts and opinions on what we do and how this music works. And it's been exciting to see him move into different parts of his career and to move international right when we went into a pandemic. So it's fun.
Fun fact, the building that Katie and I first met and sang in doesn't exist.
Oh, no, it doesn't exist anymore.
What building was that?
It was the original Chaz'Men Music Hall at the University of Iowa that was hit in the 2008 flood.
You know what's funny about that is that Chaz and I had the same voice teacher in undergrad.
Where did you go to undergrad?
University of Iowa in Iowa City. And Swanson emailed me a month ago being like, hey, we're looking at redoing our curriculum a little bit. We want to talk to people who have been doing stuff in the arts in different cities and want to know alumnus and want to know what you think. And I was like, yeah, I'll tell you how to change your whole curriculum. Sure.
He called the right one.
He sent me, and here's the thing, I was like, it's been a long time, Swanson, since I've been there. Can you send me the curriculum? Because I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what we did. And it's the exact same, Chaz. It has not changed in now 13 years. And I was like, okay, let's talk about how to really help our artists. And part of the reason this conversation started, and why he reached out, was because of pandemic. And I think what he was looking for was how should artists prepare themselves to not have work? And I was like, here's the thing, Swanson, I think that is a possibility, but also I think a better question is, how do you prepare artists for the work that there is?
Yeah. So a long time ago, I started talking about this new millennium musician, right? Or the 21st century musician, and how really the days of the specialist is kind of gone. You can't really be a specialist at one thing anymore, especially on your way up. When you get to a certain level, then you can be more selective about what you do, or specifically in opera, musical theater, what roles you choose, but on your way up, you can't really say, well, I only sing Puccini, right? Otherwise you just won't work, and that's not just in our line of work, right? Guitar players, you can't just be a jazz guitar player anymore. You have to be able to play other genres. You can't just be a rock drummer. You have to play other stuff if you want to pay your bills playing drums until you get to a certain point. You know what I mean? Katie's brother plays a lot of different kinds of stuff, and, he does a lot of country music. But when I met him, he was playing in a Tom Petty tribute band. You know what I mean? So, and he was playing
Playing
drums,
bass.
bass or drums or something like that. And now he's like a guitar player in country music. So it's like the days of just like, I only do the one thing. You can't really do that anymore. And so I don't think that our education system prepares people for that kind of a career and for that kind of, not necessarily diversity, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Adaptability.
elasticity, adaptability.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Being a flexible artist is so important. I think it's one of the things that we talk about in Janus. I mean, one of our core missions is to bring together the different traditions of opera, musical theater. I'm really glad we do that. I think I was lucky because my undergrad, I had a lot of exposure to musical theater because we had such a strong musical theater program, but I was still in the voice program and there was still a little bit of that divide, but having the exposure that I had to it at least gave me, a little bit of a foundation in how to always keep that tradition out, like kind of there and something that I would tap into. And it's been, I think recently I've probably done more musical theater than opera. And I mean, I couldn't be happier about it, but I do wish that across the board we had a little bit more focus on that.
Preparing you to be able to do both. Because honestly, a lot of big opera houses are doing musicals more and more frequently because musicals sell, A. B, because especially in America, a lot of musicals are in English. So it's easier for a new audience member to come in and understand what's going on without having to do an English translation of an
Very
opera.
true. I mean, I remember in undergrad going to see you play at the yacht club to, like make money in between. And like when, all of us had a church gig or, I mean, I've seen you play keys a million times, like just to do a thing, like when you were music directing. And that idea of adaptability and being able to understand different genres was huge. I mean, I learned modulations through going through the collection of Michael Jackson albums with Chaz. Like the way that you remember, like the way that we approach music, and especially I think approach musical success or success in the arts, is changing so much from even the 90s when it was like everybody, once you sing at the Met, you've been successful. And it's like that's a different conversation now. Like, that's a very different term of success and where you're moving and the decisions that you're going to make. I mean, Chaz has had to make those specific decisions in his career as to what will keep you singing and what will pay you better for those. Like, that's a real thing now.
Well, a friend of mine talks about this like tripod of artistic decisions. And he's like artistic fulfillment, financial, and I forget what the last one is, but the last one is maybe like career.
It's the people.
Oh yeah, the people. So like a good job should always have 2 out of 3. You should either be high paying with good people or high paying and artistic fulfilling, or whatever. And if you can get all 3, then you get all 3. And it's hard because sometimes you have to look at things and you say like, you have to make long-term decisions right now. And that's something else that we don't really, I feel like it's a lost art in the social media age. People post exactly what they're thinking right now. And then you get that like Facebook memory of 2 years ago and you're like, ooh, did I say that? Was that
no.
thing?
I'm starting to get this from high school and it's rough.
Ooh, anyway, that's a whole conversation for a whole nother situation.
Oh, I think we can segue though, because the whole genesis of this podcast conversation actually happened on social media because Chaz, I saw that you had posted a photo from a production of Pagliacci that you did recently. And what intrigued me about that, not only obviously pandemic times, and so, oh my gosh, there's performing happening, but there was a very specific kind of mask that you had. And social media gave me like a window into what was happening there. And I, messaged you and said, hey, tell me more about this. I'm really curious. The power of social media, it can...
Shrinking the world one post at a time. Actually, the Pagliacci hasn't premiered yet. So in Europe, they do a weird thing where The new season begins in September, but August is the vacation month for everybody, like for the whole continent, basically. So what they do is a lot of times they will start rehearsing for the premiere of the season before vacation. And we were originally supposed to do Hoffmann, Tales of Hoffmann. And that was really the big production that drew me in. They wanted me to come sing Hoffmann. It would have been my first Hoffmann, all that. But what happened was after the pandemic hit, things had to change, and every state here in Germany is different. They have slightly different rules and slightly different regulations. But here in Heidelberg, the shows can't be longer than 90 minutes, I believe. What happened was because we had to shift, they decided to do Pagliacci, which of course is a one act. Well, it's a 2-act, but it's short. And the other thing that they're doing is this Midsummer, where they're combining the Purcell and the Britain to do this like 90-minute Midsummer thing. And so the director that was supposed to do the Hoffmann is directing both. So that's the long story to say that we had to finish up Pagliacci so that she could start on the Midsummer, so that when we come back, we can work on both pieces. And the idea being that once this is all over, we can do Pagliacci and the Midsummer in the same night. So that's the production story. The context is that we have this little guy here, which...
What does the inside of that look like?
It was actually not opaque.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, no, it's like mesh almost, and there are 2 layers.
Yeah.
It has to be double layered, otherwise it doesn't catch enough germs.
Right.
And this was a prototype one that I kept, and I actually use it at church to sing at church. And the one that they ended up doing, I have to get rid of this. And the cool thing was that everybody had their costume fitting, and the last 10 minutes of your costume fitting was adjusting your mask for personal preferences. So what I ended up doing was I had them take this inner layer and like attaching it to the front so that it never got into my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And but you put it over, and then you sing, and it allows you to breathe. It allows you to get some sort of space, you know what I mean? Because regular masks don't allow that. And when we have these on, you can do staging as usual. You can get as close as you want, all of that.
Does it affect sound? Do you feel like it changes?
A little bit, but not as much as you would think. It takes a little bit of the shimmer off. Mm-hmm. But I still went out in the house and listened to the Silvio Nedda duet, and it still sounds good,
How big is the house? How big is Heidelberg?
So all told, it's a little over 500 seats, I think.
Okay.
So it's not that big. Europe, even the big houses in Europe are like, 1,500, 2,000
Right.
seats.
Right.
Which is still a lot.
Yeah.
But, the Met is almost 4,000. And the Kennedy Center is, I think, 2,200 or 2,300 at WNO. Yeah, so now, because of the Corona thing, they've taken out enough seats where they'll be down to 150.
I was wondering about that.
So about a third of the audience will be able to come.
Did they make any changes to your contract with all of the, obviously this has been like a huge amount of change in the programming, and did they contact you and the artists and say, hey, this is our plan, this is a new contract for you based on this plan? Or did they just kind of assume you guys would roll with it?
Well, it's a little different because over here, we are government employees. And so I'm in a fest at Heidelberg. So it's not freelance. I'm contracted to the one house, and that's, and I'm paid by the city of Heidelberg, which is weird. Like as an artist to be like, I remember a colleague of mine, a mezzo here, she called the city hall. She was like, yeah, I moved and I need to like re-register. And she says, okay, well, where do you work? And she says, I work for the opera. She says, oh, we're colleagues. So the people at City Hall were like,
we all work for the state.
We all work for the state, right?
Weird.
Which is so
That's so
crazy.
cool. It's so cool.
It is. Isn't it strange to have like government investment in the arts? Like,
Yeah. Well, the thing that I've noticed is, of course, it still matters. They still want to do things that people want to see. But because the government is subsidizing a lot of it, they're able to take the chance to do a more obscure show, or they're able to take the chance to do, an operetta that's not done a lot, because it's not like, well, if this doesn't sell, we go under. But as far as the contracts go, they didn't change our contract necessarily. What they did do was because I think we were closed for about 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks. So I think what they did do was they took our 2 weeks of vacation from this coming January and moved it to during that 6 weeks. So we don't get 2 extra weeks of vacation in January. So they moved it back to say, like, okay, everybody's taking 2 weeks of vacation in May, right? And then going through. So it's kind of like, that kind of sucks. But ultimately, our pay never stopped through the whole pandemic, which was nice. So it was like, well, if I have to choose between those two options, I'll take it. And the other thing was that for me, it's like, well, I'm not in every show. So the chances are that in January, during those 2 weeks, I may only have 2 performances anyway. You know what I mean? Because like they'll be like, okay, well, we're going to do the ballet. It's going to have a couple of shows, and then we're going to do a couple of drama shows and a symphony and 2 operas. Now that's for the orchestra. That's the worst because they still have to play their like full schedule. But for me,
you mean they don't have a tenor in every show? God.
no, they don't. But we have 3 tenors in the fest here. We have me. We have a Joao who sings more the Rossini and the lighter stuff. And we have Vinny, who's a Kammersinger here, which is like a Kammersinger is like the highest level of you can get. Like you can, if you become a Kammersinger, you can go to any university and automatically be qualified, whether or not you've finished your doctorate or whatever, because you sang, I think it's 25 years in one house. You know what I mean? Like, so he's a Kammersinger, and he does a lot of the spiel tenor stuff, but Vinny's a crazy, crazy case because he sings Goro, but he also has sung like Otello and Florestan and like the big, huge tenor stuff. So he kind of does the character stuff and the big stuff, which is crazy. But I love Vinny. And
how old is Vinny? Out of curiosity.
I was going to say 25 years.
Oh, Vinny's.
He started in his 20s.
Vinny's probably close to 60.
I'm just curious, yeah. What ended that? Yeah.
He looks good though. So like if Vinny, Vinny's one of those people where he could tell you he was 70 and you'd be like, really? Or or he could be like, oh, I'm 48, and you'd be like, really?
Vinny, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're ageless, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, he is. Vinny, so last year, my first show here, side note, this is a Vinny story. My first show here was, I sang Pinkerton and Butterfly. And Vinny split the performances, half as Goro, half as Pinkerton. And I was like, Vinny, how does your brain do that? Like, I can't. Like, all the talky stuff at the beginning of Butterfly between Pinkerton and Goro, I would be answering myself all the time.
Yeah, not accidentally just jump and be like, no, that's not
impressive.
Me. Okay.
That's not me.
Talk about versatility.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah. That's a brand of versatility I don't feel like we see, but part of me wonders if the market is poor enough in the US, not poor as in poverty, but like low quality enough, like the market is suffering enough that we have such an overwhelming amount of singers and not an overwhelming amount of jobs that there'd be no reason for one person to do both of those things. Or not no reason so much as that they would just never do that. We end up doing more typing because we have more singers than we have jobs.
Yeah. And also we're in a situation where the highest paying jobs aren't paying what they used to pay. So you end up with, Met, La Scala, Vienna, Covent Garden singers also singing at Opera Carolina.
Yeah, because they're not making as much on those other contracts.
And so you're like, okay, well, I mean, we're not talking Renee Fleming or anything like that, but I will say that I did a production. This, I don't mean this to be a brag, but like I did a show with Susan Graham and James Morris, like legends, right, in the same show at Opera Theater St. Louis. And it's not that Opera Theater St. Louis is like a bad company or anything like that. They're a very prestigious company. It's a very good company. But like Susan Graham, Susanna Phillips, James Morris, we were all in this one production. But it's like, I feel like 35, 40 years ago, that caliber of
Yeah.
singer might have not taken the Opera Theater St. Louis job, not because they didn't want to or like they looked down on it. It's just that the market was so
Mhm.
vibrant.
Well, and there's an effect of that where it, if artists at this top tier are reaching down into some of those opportunities that used to be for younger
Up and
artists
coming.
or up and coming artists, then suddenly it creates fewer opportunities for those individuals. So there's a little bit of an effect from that, a little domino effect from that.
A little bit of cannibalism. You're cannibalizing kind of the growth of the industry, I think, and not at their fault. I mean, that's a producer fault. Are we valuing opera enough in the U.S. to create a market for it fault? Like,
There's also the effect of the Young Artist Program on American opera can also not be understated. Like I worked with a guy who said that his big break was to sing like Parpignol or Arturo and Lucia or something like that at the Met, long time ago, right? And he consistently killed it, and he sang those roles until they gave him a chance to sing, like Nemorino or something like that. And it was like, because of the Young Artist Program now, those roles go to young
yeah,
artists. The company doesn't have to they don't have to pay a singer to come in and sing Arturo. They could say, well, we're going to give that opportunity to our young
to an
artists,
intern, essentially.
right? Yeah, right. And I'm not saying that the young artist programs do no good. That's not what I'm saying. I've benefited from some of these young artist programs. But I will say that it has changed what the trajectory is, and it's changed how people get their foot in the door and how old you have to be. You know what I mean? Like if they stop taking singers after 29 or 30 years old, it's hard. It's hard to be a big voice, especially in a young artist program, because your voice just isn't at the same level of polish at 29. If you are gonna sing Brunhilde, then a 29-year-old Kunigunda, like you're not gonna be the same kind of polished. And I think that can't be understated also.
And from a producer perspective, it changes the pay scale market. If you can hire somebody for half as much under the guise of a young artist program or an internship, which I don't mean under the guise as in it's shady, it's just in that interns get paid less, then you aren't
Hmm.
spending as much money on artist salaries. Like you're getting cheap labor, essentially. And that changes your pay scale. It changes the opportunities for younger singers and the pay scale that they're going to make in their opportunities. Like,
I will give credit to the Washington National Opera Young Artist Program, because they pay you as a young artist, right? No matter. And then if they cast you in a role on the main stage, you get a separate AGMA contract for your
that's awesome.
on stage role, which is
Are you
phenomenal.
speaking from personal experience with that? Is that one of the programs you worked with?
Yeah, I was adjunct a young artist program. That's a long running joke with the at WNO. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, was in the program, and he left to do some freelance work for a certain amount of time. They asked me to come in and fill his spot for that time. And during that time, I also was asked to sing Pinkerton in their Butterfly at WNO. So for their young artist performance. So I was there for 2 1/2s of a season. Does that make sense? So I was never there like, but I was a part of the program without being like a
Gotcha.
part of the program.
I'm curious how you transitioned to your career in Germany and just what kind of led you down that path. Did you have management that kind of, steered you in that direction, or is it something where you looked at what the climate was like here in the United States and decided that you wanted to pursue work in the German market or the European market?
Well, so I always looked at coming over to Germany as a goal, because of my mentor, my other mom, Sherry, who Katie knows very well. She was in the German system, and she would always talk about how you really, really learn the craft of opera singing in a German system because you do it so much. And now that I'm here, I understand what she means. I mean, all of us know the American way of you rehearse for 6 weeks, you get 2, maybe 3 orchestra rehearsals, like one Sitzprobe, and then 2 orchestra dresses, and then you do the show, and
Yeah,
then you
4 times
maybe get 3
maybe.
performances. Yeah, maybe 4. You may get 2 weekends. But over here, it's like last season. I think I did 18 butterflies and had 3 of them canceled. And you just in show number 16, you start to feel like, all right, well, I can try this, or like, I'm normally scared of this section, or I usually turn here, but I wonder what would happen if I sing that wide open. Because I know that I can do it. You know what I mean? Like, and if it feels bad, I know what I can go back to and still get a solid performance. But when you only have that one shot, the pressure of the one performance builds and builds and builds.
And you take less risks, probably. Just maybe not risks, but like you take less artistic liberty, or maybe you don't dig as deep or go to different places because it really just has to kind of stay.
And also, I mean, like as Americans, a lot of what we do is right or wrong, right? Like there's a right way or a wrong way, and it's like that's not always the case in an artistic endeavor. It's not really a right or wrong. And when you have that many performances, you get a chance to feel like, hey, well, maybe there isn't a right and wrong. Like maybe I can sing this wide open, or maybe I can cover here, or you know what I mean? Or maybe I can modify that vowel, or maybe I can sing a pure E on that B flat. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like I can
And
try.
maybe you're not beholden to the traditions or the canon because
Yeah,
you are doing it 18 times. Like people who are coming to see this aren't coming to see, Maria Callas's version of it. They're coming to see the show,
exactly.
and you get to make that your own in a way that with only a few performances here, you don't get to.
Yeah. And over here, I mean, like, and things are just different anyway. So Germany was always kind of a goal. And I was very blessed in that I did have management by the time I got over here. I was at the Glimmerglass Festival. And so we did Francesca's production of Porgy and Bess. And my management really, she was managing Bess. Her manager was managing Bess. And Bess and I became friends. And the manager was interested in hearing me. So I did an audition and then we recorded for a while. I ended up getting a job to do Porgy and Bess in London, which was a co-production with Dutch National Opera and the Met. So I was on this like track to do all these Porgy and Besses. However, I don't feel like I got into the game to only do Porgy and Bess. So Porgy and Bess is a phenomenal show. It's a phenomenal show, and I owe a lot to Porgy. But to say that that is the end of the line, I think would be doing myself, a disservice. And so it's an interesting thing where I always feel like if you get your foot in the door with Porgy, you have to know when to get off the train. Otherwise, you become one of these people that only does Porgy and Bess. And then people start to look at you in a different way. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it is what it is. I would say that it's wrong, but there are people that I mean, I have a friend who decided that what he wanted to do was be the best at that role in the world, and that's basically all he does at that role. And he's amazing at it. He really is. So I was talking to my manager, and she says, "Well, they're interested in you in Heidelberg." And so I came and I did an audition, and I did not think that the audition was great by any means. I thought it was okay, mostly because my voice was in this what I call my Porgy place. Because Porgy's kind of that crossover vibe. So
It's like that
you kind of
open,
bend,
yeah.
yeah, but it's in English, and you can bend notes. You know what I mean? And you can blues things up, and you can sing a little bit under and tip up to get to it, and it sounds cool because it's stylistically right. But if you are used to singing that way, and then you have to sing Rigoletto, it's like you can't bring that over to Rigoletto. You know what I mean? And and so I didn't do the best I could have. I did all right. It wasn't bad. I did well enough to get a call back. And so at the callback, they called me back for Pinkerton. And originally I was supposed to just be a guest to do Pinkerton, but I was determined for that second audition to go the way I wanted it to go. And so I just, really worked on my Italian game, and I went in and they asked me if I was interested in doing a fest here and not just the one role. And ironically enough, that offer came the same day that the Met offered me the Porgy and Bess job. So now it was this like, well, do you sing at the Met? Another Porgy, right? And you will have done the big, Met HD in the movies, Porgy and Bess, right? Or do you go to Europe singing the roles that you want to sing? And I agonized over that decision for a long time, and I'll never forget. I was in Amsterdam, and I asked the guy singing Porgy, Eric. I said, "What do you think, man?" And he says, "Man, listen. If you want to be a concert master, you don't play second chair in a big orchestra. You be a concert master at a small orchestra until they call you up." And that was all I needed to hear. I was like, all right. So I chose Heidelberg.
That's a really incredible story. And I actually had never heard that before, because Katie, I'm sure you probably heard it before because you guys are close. But
I did get a call that was like, did I make the right decision? I was like, yes, you did.
No. Let me tell you how this really went down. How this really went down was I called Katie because she was wedding dress shopping,
It's
and
true.
she was like, I can't wedding dress shop without Chaz. So I'm here. I'm on the phone. I'm video calling.
I mean, you picked out my
wedding
first date
shopping.
dress. Like, you picked out Rachel's first date dress. Like,
Hello?
it's fine.
And so once she was all happy with her dress, and I was like, yes, Katie, that's the dress. Go in that one. I was like, when you come down off of this dress high, when you come down off of this dress high, I was like, when you come down off of this, you got to call me in the next couple of days. And she was like, is everything okay? I was like, yeah, everything's okay. It's maybe a little too okay. It's maybe a little too okay. And I got to figure out which okay is the best okay.
I mean, we also talked about this a little bit too. It's just that the way that power structures function in America, you don't want to just be called in for a Porgy and Bess role. You don't want to just be called in for Black roles. Like, you have the capacity to do any role, and you should be singing leads in Verdi and in Mozart, even though you hate it, and everything else. Like,
no, that is not true. I love Mozart. No one wants to hear me sing it.
False. Maybe it's me, but I'm someone.
I sang a Mozart audition here in Europe.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, he says, what else you got?
What'd you bring? What did you sing?
It was specific. It was Tito. I sang one of Tito's arias. And so then he goes, oh, the Bohème was just so much better. And I was like, yeah.
It's fine. I was just raised on Mozart, but it's fine.
But like the style, I mean, like I was good. It was good. I feel like I would love to sing another Così.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody wants to hear it, but I would love to do it.
I would very much enjoy that. But also, that's like my favorite show. It's fine.
It's good. It's my wife's favorite too.
Yes, Aurelia. I knew we were the same. But on that subject, I mean, talk to me about like the stability of having the Germany career versus gigging in US. Like you are now a family man. So like that's really awesome. I mean, you get to live your life a little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy because so my wife is a pianist and a coach who freelances also. And it was this thing where, every 6 weeks or so we were always in a different place, right? And she had 2 years at the LA opera program where she was pretty stable. But after that, it's like, all right, I have a contract here, contract there, in between, we'll see each other, you know what I mean? Like, but it was weird when she first got here. We have a 6-year-old, my stepson Graham. Um, there was a sale on like long john underwear, like long underwear at this store. And she was going to buy some. And she says, maybe I should buy a size up for next year. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal. But to think that you're going to be in the same place a year from now, guaranteed, was
It's
new
huge.
and like different and like crazy, And I don't make as much money on a fest contract as I did as a freelancer. Let me just get that out there right now. Don't make as much money. I don't have nearly the same amount of stress.
We're here for it. Go for it.
And the insurance is insane.
Yeah. Healthcare.
The healthcare is insane. I mean, not to like totally go to the political side of things,
Yeah.
but the first time we went to we took our boy to the doctor because you have to get checkups before he goes to school and all those kind of things. And we gave them the card, and they were both on my insurance because I'm a government employee, so like health insurance. And I gave them the card, and they were like, "All right, great, thanks, bye."
You're like, wait.
And then we went to the pharmacy, picked up some medicine. One time he got sick. They just handed us medicine.
What that must be like.
No copays, no deductibles, no like.
You don't want like my kidney in exchange?
That's it.
Like,
And so, like, exactly. So, like, it's very, very different to have that kind of like all from singing. You know what I mean? Like, my job hasn't changed, but the benefits, is totally crazy. And to be able to like think about planning a family or expanding a family or things like that, like you can actually do that here. And if you can get a couple of guesting jobs, I'm sure it helps, because of course the money is in guesting. So I'm hoping that next season I'll be able, now that I've been here and kind of have a reputation of doing a decent job, that like somebody will go like, hey, well, let's get the tenor from Heidelberg to come and do, our butterfly, our Pinkerton's down, you know what I mean, or whatever, because they don't do covers here.
interesting. At all.
They don't do covers. No, yeah. So because every city basically has an opera house with a fest or with whatever. So when our butterfly went down, they called Darmstadt actually, and it was like, hey, don't one of your sopranos sings butterfly, right? And they're like, yeah. And so she came down and did like 3 or 4 shows.
Love that.
So like, they don't do covers. They just bring in somebody from a different city that's close by. Totally different.
It's so funny you're talking about pay too. Like, it feels frustrating for artists to really have to pick. Like Matt and I talk about this all the time. My husband is an equity actor, and like the reason he's getting paid so much is that in no other career are you expected to look for a new job every 6 weeks. Like he works for 8 weeks, he rehearses 2 weeks and then does a 6-week run of a show, maybe gets extended, and then he's looking for a job again. And it's like in no other career, especially even in America, are you expected to constantly be job searching and constantly be changing positions. For me as a producer, of course I'm not making a whole lot of money, but I'm in one place. I have a constant paycheck. I'm not doing that job search every 3 months. Well, I wasn't. Now I am. But like that stability, I feel like is a hard thing to give up. And that.
It is hard, and that's how you end up with people that have been in the same theater for so long. Because at the end of your contract, the theater has the right to say, okay, we're not going to renew you next year.
Yeah.
So you sign on for 2 years usually, And then every year after that, usually in October, they tell you, okay, are you gonna stay for another season? We want you or we don't want you. And usually, if you're not a bad person and you're doing a good job, a lot of times you can just kind of stay. But unless they have there's a on fire kid from Poland or something that we really want to bring in and whatever. But usually you can keep it. And so that's why you end up with people. I have a friend who was like, man, I was only going to be here for 3 years. And he's gone on his 13th season here. And, 3 kids later.
It's that way for chorus contracts too, right? Because this is something that didn't materialize for me, but I had an opportunity to possibly come in and be a sub for a chorus position in Bern. And it was somebody that was like a, I guess staff chorister, contract chorister, but they were going to take like a 6-month leave of absence. And evidently the company was okay with that. They have like a 6-month sub and then they can come back, like go do what they needed to do and then come back to their job. And I was possibly going to be that sub for them. But of course, then COVID happened. And that's just incredible. It's just incredible to think like that a company would like invest in an individual artist in that way and like give them this opportunity that's not just 8 weeks and then bye, so we're all moving to Germany.
Yeah, we're going to come live with you and your family.
Basically what we have learned.
Please do.
So I'm wondering if for us to wrap up, Chaz and I used to do this thing where we do like 3 to 5 of your favorites of something. We do this with everything, like your top 5 Michael Jackson songs or your top 3 roles. So let's do your top 5 roles that you have sung, Chaz, and then the top 3 that you want to.
Ooh, okay.
And that can be anything. I'm going to say opera, musical theater. It can be an R&B song you want to perform, whatever.
Okay.
I did not warn him about this at all.
No, this is on the spot right here.
And yes, it has to be in number order.
It has to be in numbered order.
Just because I know you can do it.
All right. So emotionally, I'm going to put Alfredo number 1 because the opera means so much to me. It was the reason I became an opera singer, was Traviata. So Alfredo's number 1. I think I'm going to say Bohème 2, as much as that pains Katie.
I was going to be really surprised if you didn't put Bohème up there. We're all surprised.
As much as that pains Katie. The whole experience was amazing, because I was a cover at Glimmerglass, and I went on for 2 shows. But I also had the privilege of singing Bohème at Attica Prison for inmates. And that was another story. If you ever have me back on for another episode, we got to talk about the Attica Prison trip, because that was crazy. I'll throw Romeo from Romeo and Juliet. I'll throw Romeo in there, because that was really fun.
The Gounod, right?
The Gounod, yeah. And then the last 2, oh man.
Is it Shrek? It's Shrek.
No, it's not Shrek. I love Shrek. All right, I'm going to do 2 more and then an honorable mention for a show, not necessarily because of the role, okay? I think that I'm going to say, I'm going to put Robbins and Crabman from Porgy and Bess in there because I owe so much of my career to it that I feel like out of respect, I have to put it in the top 5. And then the last one is probably Cavaradossi.
Yeah.
Because it's just crazy good.
It is.
Right. The honorable mention is the Plaid Titans.
I was going to say it. Yes. That was an incredible show.
Because that production was so tight. It was 4 guys. We were all really close-knit friends. And Sherry was the pianist. And, it was the only show that I've ever done that I can legitimately say there was never a moment where you couldn't pass the ball to anybody on the stage and they would kill it. There was no fat. It was the leanest show ever.
All right, top 3 that you want to do, you haven't. And I'm going to say that can be anything, not necessarily something that you would get hired to sing.
Oh, well.
I was like, is this going to be Mimi, Tosca, or Violetta? Which of these is this going to be?
No, listen. Listen, if I'm gonna die, I want to jump off the roof. You know
I
what
want
I
to
mean?
like take a leap onto a mattress. Sure.
Let's go. Actually, when I did Tosca, we opened the trap door
Yes.
in the floor, and so she jumped through the
Yes.
floor instead of off of a high
Listen,
thing. It
the
was
one
crazy.
time I
It was
had to do
awesome.
that, I jumped 8 feet into an orchestra pit. And I thought, this isn't that big a deal. And then I sat on top of that like ledge and was like, ooh, this is not great. This is not great.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yep.
Just
I
miss the
was there for
tubas.
that. I believe
Just
I
make sure you
stage
jump over
managed
the
that show.
tubas. It's going to be fine.
So I think three that I want to do. I think I would say George Washington in Hamilton is pretty high on
I
my
would love to
list.
see you in that.
I really want to sing
Mm-hmm.
Radames and Aida one day. And then my last one is going to be Hoffman because I think it's such a feat, like it's such a like test of endurance, and the music is incredible and it's so long, and it's like I want to know if I can do it, like you've seen so many people like crash and burn, and I'm like I gotta know if
You
I can
will.
do it.
You will do great.
And so our Hoffman has been pushed back a year, so chances are that we're going to stay another year, so that I can do it. So knock on wood that this COVID stuff goes away and that I can actually get to do it because that would be fun.
You will.
That would be awesome. And maybe we can come and see you in it.
Please do. I got space.
You're a government employee. It's
That's
fantastic.
right.
Oh, thanks for agreeing to do this. We're so grateful, and we're so excited about you and your career, and can't wait to like hear more and talk to you again. Maybe we'll do another
My goodness.
episode. Maybe this will be a little continued project that we do at Janus.
Yes.
So
I am going to make you do like an R&B analysis at some point.
Let's
I
do
just
it.
am, because that's how I learned. I learned like rhythm through funk music. Like this is how I was taught. So I'm going to make everybody else take the Chaz class of music theory.
Listen, I'm telling you, more people would stay awake in 8:30 a.m. music theory class if every now and again, instead of playing Vivaldi, you play George Clinton in the
I'm
Funk
just
Festival.
saying. I'm just saying. All right. We love you all. Thank you.
on that note, cheers.
Cheers.
This has been a Take Two podcast by Janus Concert Series. That was Katie Galletti, Artistic Director, Anna Caldwell, Marketing Manager, and of course a big thank you to Chaz'Men Williams-Ali for joining us as our special guest this episode. For updates, join us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit janusconcertseries.com. See you next time.